Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I want to talk to you about a statement that Scott Bessent made in a television interview, in which he made a very interesting comment about how India's rich families, and I guess he's referring to Ambani's, are profiteering from India's purchase of inexpensive Russian oil. This comment comes just one day uh, after Peter Navarro, who is an advisor to the White House on trade and commerce, who used to be in the first Trump administration and is a close friend and advisor to Donald Trump, also wrote an article in the Financial Times, basically accusing India of profiteering and taking advantage of the war on Ukraine to buy Russian oil cheap and sell it at a higher prices. And I did a whole show on that, as you must have seen yesterday, in which I showed that to some extent the United States was right, because the biggest item that the Indian economy has imported in the past 2 to 3 years has been crude oil, and the biggest export of India has been petroleum products. So there is no doubt that India is importing petroleum, crude petroleum, and exporting products. And the claim that Dr. Jaishankar has made repeatedly, that India is a poor country and so it is in India's national interest to import cheap oil so that its citizens can benefit, that's not entirely true, because that discounts, the huge discounts at which India has been buying, or Indian refineries and Indian private sector billionaires have been buying from Russia, that amount of discount has not been extended to the Indian consumer. The Indian consumer has been paying the same price for oil. That we know, but I'm quite surprised at how aggressively the Trump administration people, especially those who have been involved in trade negotiations with India, like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is kind of finance minister of the United States, and how aggressively he has made this observation. And if you remember, a few weeks ago, Howard Lutnick had also said that India's purchasing of Russian weapons was a source of irritation to the United States. And now, on 27th, that is about a week from now, there will be a little more than a week from now, there will be additional 25% tariffs on Indian exports to the US because of the Russian oil. So while there is no escalation in terms of tariffs, I thought that the fact that the discussions with Putin and Zelensky have gone so well, even with Europeans, and the chances that there is going to be a ceasefire or some peace movement on the Russia-Ukraine front, it is quite possible that the war could come to an end within 2 or 3 weeks if the bilateral between Zelensky and Putin that Trump is trying to schedule goes off well. So, given that the possibility and the enthusiasm and the optimism that is apparent in the White House these days, I thought either the White House would come out and suspend the 25% additional tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, uh, or delay it. And I'm very, very surprised that neither that has happened. But not only that, Scott Bessent goes out there and makes a statement in which he's factually correct, no doubt about it. And I think Ambani has also lobbied Donald Trump quite much. If you remember, Mukesh Ambani was seen at the Trump's inauguration, so he probably bought the $1 million dinner ticket to the inauguration. He was there. There was not much talk about him being invited, but there was a lot of talk about him attending that. And then there was also this recognition that there was a dinner given to Donald Trump and businessmen by, I think, the Qatari Sheikh when Donald Trump was visiting the Middle East. And then I saw that uh, Ambani was also invited to that particular dinner at the Qatari's place. So you can see that Ambani has reached out to Donald Trump, no doubt about it. And India has made two moves clearly. One move which is quite ostensible today, especially today, when Narendra Modi met with Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, who is in India at the moment. He's come here after 3 years, and Narendra Modi has announced that he's going to be attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in China at the end of this month. So Modi will be visiting China after 7 years. So clearly, these two moves could have irritated the Trump administration and Scott Bessent. Then probably they're on WhatsApp, and so there must have been some back and forth on that, or Signal, or whatever they are using to talk. And then as he was going on TV, he felt that he needed to take another pot shot at India. He was asked, and this is where it gets very interesting. He was asked the question as to why is the US not imposing tariffs on China, which is the biggest importer of Russian oil. And to that, Scott Bessent, I think with each iteration of this discussion, his answers are getting much more prepared. I guess he's getting some research assistance on this. So this is what he said. I did not have time to check, but you should check. He said that China's situation is different from India's because China is not taking advantage of this war. China is merely diversifying its oil purchases. So he said before the war, China was getting 11% of Russian oil, and now it's 16%. So it has gone up from 11 to 16%, just 5%, whereas India went from 2% to 40% in the Russian oil. So you can see this huge spike of 38%, and that he's saying is, and the fact that it's not being consumed domestically, and India has made a profit of $16 billion. At least the businessman Navarro referred to them as the oil lobby, and Scott Bessent basically talked about business families in India. So they are taking a closer and closer look at it, it seems. So basically, India has made $16 billion. The Chinese are not doing arbitrage, which is buying cheap and selling at a higher price. Actually, there was a very good movie called Arbitrage with Richard Gere. You should see that. It was a fun movie. Anyway, I digress. So he used the word arbitrage to say that India is buying cheap and selling high. And so that is profiteering. That's not acting in national interest. And in the process, you are helping Russia's economy and Russia. So it's very interesting that now the Trump administration not only has an explanation as to why they are targeting India, but they also have a pretty good explanation as to why they are not targeting China. India has also taken another step, which shows that there is some kind of reconciliation going on, or India is trying its best without, completely losing face as some other countries have done. So one step that India has taken is that it has reduced its tariffs on cotton for a short period of time. So this reduction on tariffs on cotton will go from August 19, which is today, here at least in the US, August 19 to September 30th. So for about, you could say for 41, 42 days, the tariffs on cotton is going to go down. And clearly there are two goals for this. One, now Prime Minister Modi has opened the door to agricultural imports from the US by reducing tariffs on cotton. Yes, it is temporary. The tariffs will go back on 30th. Maybe the Modi government is thinking that by reducing tariffs temporarily on cotton, we can maybe get Trump to reduce the tariffs or eliminate the penalties on buying oil. I don't know what the purpose is. The other purpose is obviously to provide some relief to Indian garment exporters. And the garment exporters are doing this. They are facing stiff competition from Pakistan and Bangladesh. So all these countries import cotton and then convert them into shirts like this. If you remember, this is the same shirt that I had told you was made in Bangladesh. The last time I did this, last time I mentioned it, I was wearing the same shirt. And yes, this shirt is made in Bangladesh. And so both Bangladesh and Pakistan have open or reduce the tariffs on cotton from the US, I think, to zero. So the US will be able to ship not just cotton, soybeans and cotton to India, to Pakistan and Bangladesh. Now, what that does is it gives, because Pakistani's tariff rate is 19% and Bangladesh 20% and India is now 50%. It gives a huge advantage in the garment sector for the Pakistanis and the Bangladeshis. So they're just competing with each other. Indian exporters would be kind of out of it. So partly Modi government's reduction of tariffs on cotton is to signal to Donald Trump that, look, we have, we are open to negotiations on certain aspects of even the agriculture, such as cotton. Let's see how the cotton growers in India react to this, because my understanding was that Bangladesh's cotton came either from Egypt or from India. So India also produces cotton. And so we will see what happens to the Indian domestic production of cotton, even though it is temporary. And if Indian garment manufacturers do import US cotton or not in this small window of 41 days. So that will be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. But so India has reduced. In the economic sphere, you can see India has made one concession to the Americans. Temporary it is short-lived, but they have reduced tariffs on cotton, so Indian manufacturers can buy it. It is also a relief to the Indian manufacturers. But the stepping up is inexplicable. As I said, given the fact that the negotiations have been going so well between Donald Trump and Putin and Donald Trump and Zelensky. I mean, I thought that the meeting with the Europeans would be very testy, but no, it was all kumbaya, and Donald Trump has agreed to their biggest deal, where America will somehow be involved in post-peace security guarantees for Ukraine. America is going to either provide weapons or air cover or intelligence or some kind of coordination, etc. But America will be involved, not with troops on the ground. Those Europeans will have to furnish. But it's not going to be NATO. It's going to be NATO-like. And I think it will be NATO-light, not NATO-like. But nevertheless, the Europeans are happy that the US still remains committed to the security of Ukraine, even though it does also look as if the Europeans are also reconciled to the idea of that the territories that were lost to Russia are now lost. So given that, I thought that Donald Trump would be in a good mood and he might say, well, the Indian tariffs are going to go up on 27th. We will take that away. Now, this is beginning to worry. I'm genuinely worried because not only this, there's a lot of anti-India rhetoric now going on in the MAGA crowd. So people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Larry Loomer, and others, and that anger is being expressed tangentially. So, for example, now there's a huge demand to cancel H-1B visas, and when you use the word H-1B visa now, all people think of is India. And they're not talking about the fact that there are people from other countries also who do get H-1B visas. I know many of our professors who have come here to teach chemistry, physics, even professors there are some Indian professors who teach English. There are some, people coming from Africa, from the Middle East, etc., who do benefit from the H-1B visa. But clearly, more than 70 to 80% of those visas go to Indians. And so there is a backlash against the H-1B visas too. And there is a demand coming from MAGA crowd that H-1B visas be canceled. And I think if under pressure from MAGA, the Trump administration decides, nothing to do with India, let's keep that out of it, nothing to do with India, but under pressure from MAGA, if the Trump administration decides to cancel H-1B visas or suspend them or reduce the number, I think is that Donald Trump given the mood that his administration is displaying, may repackage that demand by MAGA as something that he's doing against India. So this has become very serious. I think this is a test of Indian diplomacy. They need to quickly get on board and fix this. They cannot continue to have a tense and hostile relationship with the US as it is becoming, because in the long run, it is in the interest of both the United States and India to have good relations. But there is also this whole problem that this whole reaction to this Modi, instead of acknowledging that there must have been some misunderstanding or mishandling of the United States and Trump, instead of doing that, he's reacting by going towards China. And it is ridiculous. I will be doing a special show sometime later tonight on basically on Wang Yi's visit to India and his meetings with Ajit Doval, Dr. Jaishankar, and also Prime Minister Modi, the three people whom the Trump administration spoke with during the night of Operation Sindoor, before Trump says he was able to get the ceasefire. So I think that that may not serve India's long-term interests, because China's friendship is not going to come for free. China's friendship comes with CPEC. Will China will not abandon Pakistan. It has proven again and again and again to be a very good friend of Pakistan. So now India also wants to be friends with China that helped in Operation Sindoor. Not only that, China has its own Belt and Road Initiative. Will India now sign up to the BRI? India was competing with China in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, in Maldives against China. Will India continue to compete with China, and will the Chinese be okay with that? Because China is not looking for an equal friend. China is looking for a number two in South Asia. And until now, it was Pakistan, and it could be India. But it will not be India by sacrificing Pakistan. So India has to really figure this thing out. I have always advocated that India and China should have good relationship, not a hostile relationship, so hostile that India becomes part of the West. And in the past few years under Prime Minister Modi, India was chasing the West, buying weapons increasingly moving away from Russia, went from 70% to 35%. Basically, they reduced their military procurement from Russia by 50%. Now it's all about France and America and Israel. So India was just moving from here to there, and now that Trump is not treating India well, India's just lobbing towards the other side. I think that's not strategic autonomy, that is strategic dependence. India should exercise strategic autonomy. And my recommendation to India is improve relations with China as much as you can. Don't make too many concessions, which will hurt you in the long run just to look good for the short run, because Prime Minister Modi uses foreign policy as a way to make profit. Sorry, the Prime Minister Modi uses foreign policy essentially for domestic purposes to gain votes, and in that process, he should not make too many concessions which will hurt India's national interest with China. It is in India's short-term and long-term interests to have really good relations with China. No doubt about it. India's pharmaceutical industry, electronics industry depend on China. But doing that at the expense of its relations with the US is going to be difficult. And let me also tell you that even during Trump administration and post-Trump administration, India's relations with Europe cannot improve while deteriorating with the US. So India can't have bad relations with the US and good relations with Europe. No one has achieved that. Iran tried, but it didn't work. So I think China has also tried to divide the West, but that has also not worked. If you remember, Ursula von der Leyen went to China before and met Xi Jinping a couple of days before she met Trump, and then and Europe completely, bend its knee to Donald Trump after having a very unpleasant meeting with Xi Jinping. So I think this is worrisome. I'm worried that this escalation. I just hope it's a rhetorical escalation and does not really translate into some kind of a policy escalation. Anyway, so this is actually for me an experimental show. Abhi was asking me why I was doing this show at 5:30 in the morning in India. Uh, I This is the first time I'm using this new platform that I have never used before. As a user, I've been on it for other people's show, but I have actually streamed this show live on both my YouTube channels and also on LinkedIn. So I'm looking forward to going and taking a look to see if it really worked before I subscribe and pay. It's an expensive platform before I pay for it. Plus, I have to learn how to use this. So this was also a trial. So that's why at this time, SMS, and I saw Rohit also here. Yes, SMS. That's exactly what I'm doing. I hope that for Bihar elections, he doesn't do any couple of stupid things with China. Rohit, sir, today, I think Peter Navarro has mentioned India should buy US weapons with dollars rather than spending money on Russia. Yeah, that was an article yesterday. Rohit, I did a whole show on that article in Hindi, and you should take a look at it because I think you can see that article. So I did say, I think the show has Peter Navarro's name in the title. So you should watch that show. And yes, it was an interesting article that Peter Navarro wrote. And because if you notice, Financial Times on top says that he is advisor to Donald Trump. So they kind of emphasize that instead of putting it down there in his bio. So no, I'm of India. No, I have not understood why BJP is creating international enemies with Muslim inclination. Well, they have a cultural agenda, Nova. They have, they are nationalists, no doubt about it. There's nothing wrong with that. So while they're trying to push India's national interests, which is good, they also have colored the national interests with their Hindutva ideology. So what they push is sometimes hostile to Christians and Muslims. I'm very surprised that Marco Rubio, who's a very aggressive Christian, he's like a Christian Taliban, has not yet focused on the way India has treated Christians in the past. We will see what happens. Milind, India needs to show for the time being until Trump. Exactly. India needs to survive. India will survive, but India should not take steps which will become irreversible because Trump is a very unusual creature, I should say. There's not going to be another Trump in a long time. I hope not. So Donald Trump will do damage in the next 3.5 years. But he's at some point, it's quite possible that if he loses one of the houses in November, then he could become a lame duck president. But there will be probably J.D. Vance or Vivek Ramaswamy and people like that winning elections in the future for the Republicans, but none of them will be like Donald Trump. So I don't think anyone should take speedy decisions which have long-term implications just because of Trump. So they should not confuse Trump with the United States. I would love to come to China, Wahli, but I was just exploring. Apparently, except in the big cities, nobody speaks English. I can't use Google Maps. So my daughter, who has been to China on more than one occasion, she even studied in China for 2-3 years. She was telling me, Abba, you don't know Chinese, you're going to have a tough time because you will have to, maybe I should learn a few Chinese phrases before I come to China. But I do plan to visit China because I need to see it for myself. I have not seen China. My eyes, I learned a lot when I went to Brazil last year. So Brazil is a second tier. So the World Bank has 4 levels of economies. One is low income, lower middle income, upper middle income, and then high income. India is in the number two, lower middle income. Brazil is in the number third category, upper middle income or higher middle income category, which is where China is also, and Turkey is. And then above that is most of the Western countries, which are high income economies. So when I looked at Brazil and I spent some time there, we were there, my wife and I were there for quite a bit. I gave a couple of lectures there. And I could see how it was very much like India, but also slightly better in every little way, in infrastructure, etc. And so I got a pretty good sense of what's the difference between a lower middle income economy and an upper middle income economy. But I do want to see China, because China at 13,000 GDP per capita is on the border of a high income economy. So it'll be very interesting to see China and its development. Well, inshallah, if not this year, but definitely in the first semester of next year, I will visit China. There is a hadith from Prophet Muhammad, and with peace be upon him, it says, if you want to acquire knowledge, go to China. As a professor, I haven't been to China even once. But yeah, maybe. It'll also give me a good, I will be more grounded, I guess, in my assessment of the Chinese economy, etc. God of that, I was hoping that the tariff will go away, but now I'm worried because of the mood. In the last 2 days, last 24 hours, you could say that the article by Peter Navarro and then the statement by Scott Bessent. And plus, before that, Scott Bessent said something else also. He made this observation that unlike the Soviet Union's era, where the Soviet Union was a geopolitical enemy but not an economic competitor, America's economic competitors were always America's allies, like Japan and Germany and Europe. But now, for the first time, America has a geopolitical challenger who is also an economic challenger, which is China. And so they're going to deal with China with kid gloves. And so don't expect that India will get the same treatment that China will. They're not the same in the eyes of the US in particular. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching Conversations. I will now go back and take a closer look at what transpired with Wang Yi's visit to India, because I plan to do a show tonight. I've got some requests from friends in Eastern Europe and the Caucasus on there. They're very curious as to what I think about what is going on. And I also saw Prime Minister Modi's tweet just a few hours ago about his meeting with Wang Yi. So that's an interesting development, and I will talk to you about that, and in the context of RIC and BRICS also. So thank you for watching Conversations, and I hope this experiment of mine went successful. I can see that lots of people have asked questions, so at least on some channel it is showing live. Thank you very much. Please, if you've not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share it with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtadar Khan. Take care.